So hello Achiever, today I am in San Diego, in Laroche, more precisely, and I am with a new awesome guest. He's Mark Waldman, one of the most world's leading experts on spirituality, communication, and also he is a neuroscientist, and he is awesome. He will answer my questions. Hello Mark.
I'm so wonderful. I'm so happy to be here. It's so wonderful to be here. What a beautiful day we have.
Yeah, it's an amazing view also. How are you today?
I am doing absolutely fabulous.
Great. And I love this place. I love this interview. Thank you very much.
Actually, it's one of the most important things to do for your brain all the time. And even if you are in the world's ugliest spot, if you close your eyes for a moment and you think about 2 or 3 of the most beautiful places that you've been in your life, and fully visualize that, there are parts of your brain that will respond as if you are actually at the beach or in the waterfall. So you can give yourself a 1-minute vacation even if you're in the midst of the most strenuous or overwhelming work that you are doing.
Great, I love that. And before to ask you some questions about your expertise, I would love to know your story and how did you start in this field and became so successful in what you are doing now.
I think I started in this field really when I was in college, and somebody had given me a little white pill called LSD and did not tell me that I was going to hallucinate. And it terrified me. But it also showed me that the reality that I thought I was seeing might be very, very different. What is this weird reality state that I went into? What was this hallucination? Is it real or is it unreal? So I moved away from that stuff. But throughout my life, I've always wondered, because I have positive thoughts that come in saying, this is what I want to do, and I have negative thoughts coming in saying, Mark, you're no good at this or no good at that. I wanted to understand what the nature of human consciousness was. And this has been my personal driving force throughout my entire life. And I've always played in 2 realms. I'm willing to experiment with everything. So I've sampled all of the world's religious traditions and half of the spiritual practices and the mystical practices going on. And each one shows us that you can change your thoughts. You can look at the world in a different way. And then I began to immerse myself in psychology. Began to realize that in psychology, we all have a different worldview. I can look at the world and think that there's a lot of negativity out there, and then suddenly I'm distrustful of you and even myself. Or I can presume that the world and the universe is this incredibly beautiful place. And the way in which that I now know affects the brain is that the brain says whatever thought that you have, that becomes an inner reality, even if your thought is an entire illusion. So about 10 years ago, I had the honor to meet up with Andrew Newberg, who is a neuroscientist at the University of Pennsylvania, and I became, along with him, an associate fellow at his center. And we've been doing, over many, many years, brain scan studies of Buddhists, of nuns, of Pentecostals speaking in tongues, of atheists praying to God, of Muslims and Sufis doing La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, moving into trance states and bringing in Brazilian shamans to see what goes on in their brains. And we began to discover from our research and from the research of other neuroscientists doing that there is a spiritual circuit in your brain. There is a God part of your brain. There is a part of your brain that even if you do not believe in the existence of God, the moment somebody mentions that word, some part of your brain says, what Where does God fit into the world? And then your visual cortex gets turned on, and you start looking for a picture of God. And that picture begins out in a young child's mind as a face. If God can hear you, poof, God has ears. You know, if God can see you, a little child will get afraid. If you're in the bathroom, is God looking at me? Has eyes. So we all start out with this image of an old man in the sky. And then we found out that the more people meditate on this thing that doesn't exist, because there is no old man in the sky, we begin to think, well, maybe God is something different. And maybe God is something different. And then when you begin to speak to mystics, people who have gone as deep into their spirituality as possible, they will say the same thing that an atheist says. The God you don't believe in is the same God that I don't believe in either. So God collapses itself. The word disappears. Now we're immersing ourselves in an experience of life, something that is outside of the everyday consciousness and thought processes that go on in your frontal lobes. The visual cortex begins to slow down. Your sense of self that's formed up here begins to evaporate. So if you think that God is peace and love, suddenly you begin to see peace and love in every part of your life.